story we have been following throughout the past 2 days surrounds the superstar herself, Caitlin Clark, the WNBA star, the Indiana Fever star, Caitlin Clark. She's going to miss all the action on the court.
Caitlin Clark gets hurt, and guess what? Your demand vanishes because people ain't going to pay up to see these athletes that are ungrateful that their sport's growing. People aren't paying up for that. And we are here, right here. The tickets for this game, for this All-Star game, they've dropped by 50%.
What was supposed to be Caitlin Clark's big moment, a hometown celebration in Indianapolis, somehow spiraled into a PR disaster for the WNBA. The city had gone all in, plastering a giant 34-story mural of Clark on the side of the JW Marriott, gearing up for packed arenas and booming business. But instead, rows of empty seats and frustrated fans staging a boycott of the All-Star Game. So the big question is, how did the league fumble what should have been a slam dunk for their biggest star? And what did Commissioner Kathy Engelbert finally have to say about the officiating mess during All-Star Weekend? Her response says a lot about the disconnect between the league's leadership and the very players who draw the crowds. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the WNBA will ever figure it out? Let's get into it.
You come to Indianapolis, look, this is what everybody's been talking about. This right here, Caitlin Clark, the banner right there on the JW Marriott. It is 34 stories banner, unbelievable. Is the largest banner ever on the JW Marriott. You may think about the bracket. Remember back in the NCAA tournament back in 2021? Yeah, it's bigger than that as well. 113,000 square feet. It is unbelievable. And you see what it says from downtown in my town. No doubt, this is something that is grabbing everyone's attention. And who else better to be on that than the star herself, Caitlin Clark?
Indianapolis had been gearing up for months, thinking this would be the biggest WNBA weekend the city and the league had ever seen. They rolled out a replica All-Star court right at the airport to welcome fans. Local shops and restaurants stocked their shelves and brought on extra staff to handle the expected rush. Gainbridge Fieldhouse sold out within hours once tickets dropped. At one point, even the cheapest seats were going for $121. With average resale prices hitting $262, and the best spots selling for thousands. According to TickPick, it was the most expensive WNBA All-Star Game in history.
Really unfortunate that Caitlin Clark missed it. The crowd would have been exploding. The crowd would have been exploding. The arena would have been exploding. Oh man, a big miss as far as the WNBA is concerned.
Then came July 17th, and everything flipped. News broke on social media that Caitlin Clark had suffered a groin injury, and instantly, the hype took a nosedive. You could literally watch ticket prices crashing by the hour. Those $262 average resale prices, they plummeted to just $64 within hours. That's a 75% drop. Total panic hit the resale market. People who bought tickets, hoping to flip them for profit, were now scrambling to sell at huge losses. The get-in price sank from $121 to around $65, and even then, buyers weren't exactly lining up. This wasn't some slow fade. It was a financial meltdown unfolding live across social media.
From $121 all the way down to just $64 after news broke that Caitlin Clark won't be playing. These are people saying, I'm done. I don't want to watch. Caitlin Clark's not. I bought tickets solely to watch Caitlin Clark in the All-Star Game. I made accommodations solely to get to Indiana to watch Caitlin Clark in the All-Star Game. She's injured. I have no interest in that anymore. People are selling their tickets so much so they just want off of them. 121, okay. You want it for 100? Oh no, okay. I guess I gotta lower it to 80. Oh, you don't want to buy it for 80? Okay, I guess I'll lower it to 70. You don't want to buy it to 70? I guess I'll lower it to $64. The WNBA is paying attention to these trends, and they're seeing firsthand what Caitlin Clark is worth to this.
You know what makes this whole situation even tougher? We've actually seen this pattern before, but never anything this extreme. Back in May, when Clark sat out a few regular season games due to that quad strain, ticket prices took noticeable hits. The Washington game saw a 47% drop, and that high-demand matchup in Chicago, prices tanked by 71%. But those were just regular season games. This was supposed to be the All-Star Game in her own backyard. And the collapse this time? Completely next level.
The ticket prices. The demand fell off a cliff. And it's not just the on-court product that suffers without number 22, Caitlin Clark. The entire weekend's economic opportunities have felt the fall.
For the first time all season, Gainbridge Fieldhouse was staring down the possibility of not selling out. Let that sink in. A venue that had been packed solid for nearly 2 straight years of fever games was now facing empty seats during what should have been the biggest basketball weekend in Indy since the NBA All-Star Game. And the numbers? They were rough. Vendors who had poured thousands into All-Star Weekend merch were now bracing for huge losses. Restaurants and hotels that had prepped for wall-to-wall crowds were suddenly dealing with last-minute cancellations. The economic fallout spread fast across downtown Indianapolis as the harsh reality started to hit.
But when it comes to the vendors in the arena, the shops in the arena, they're not going to have the same amount of people patronize their business as they would if Caitlin Clark was there. The surrounding restaurants, the surrounding areas, the surrounding attractions, they're not going to have the same number of people patronize their business as they would if Caitlin Clark was healthy.
This year, for the second time ever, the WNBA All-Star Game was supposed to feature an actual star. Normally, this celebration of pretend basketball features players that no one's ever heard of.
But this wasn't just about one player missing a single game. Fans were making it crystal clear who's really driving the excitement around the WNBA. When other big names go down with injuries, you don't see ticket prices fall off a cliff like this. The message from the market was loud and undeniable. Without Clark, the All-Star Game just didn't have the same pull. And that sudden drop exposed something the league has been avoiding. This entire record-breaking season has been riding on the back of one player. Take her out of the equation, and suddenly all those sold-out crowds and revenue highs don't seem quite as solid.
How did we get to an All-Star Game in Indiana where Caitlin Clark is not healthy enough to play? Well, it all started last year, in her rookie season, where she received 20% of all the flagrant fouls in the league. And most of them came from Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky. And these weren't basketball plays. They were not only fouling her, but they were getting up, laughing about it, laughing about Caitlin Clark getting assaulted. Any other work environment, people go to jail for what's going on.
Clark's groin injury didn't come out of nowhere. It was the predictable outcome of months of increasingly rough play that the refs just refused to rein in. Opponents realized they could grab, shove, and hit her with little to no consequences. And game after game, the officials just let it slide. The whistles stayed silent, and the physicality kept ramping up until something gave.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of physicality that they're able to play with against her. I knew it as an opponent, and I see it as her coach. I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is what it is. And we've got to help her learn to adjust and use it against them in certain ways. We've got to find some ways to make it a little bit easier for her. But the level of physicality overall in our league has been at a different level than it's been for a long time.
Let's be honest about what was happening on the court. Even the Washington Post called out the consistently terrible second-rate officiating that was turning WNBA games into straight-up brawls. They didn't hold back, saying the league might as well change its logo to a bruise and adopt "no call" as its new slogan. And honestly, that wasn't an exaggeration. That's exactly what fans were seeing night after night. Need proof? Just look at the tape. Teams were hacking, grabbing, and shoving Clark all over the floor with zero whistles. Over and over again, defenders were pulling her arms, bodying her off screens, fouling her on drives, and the refs just stood there. No calls, no protection. That kind of environment made it clear. Roughing up Clark had basically become a go-to strategy.
And last year, I noticed how much it was just Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark was taking all the hits. Caitlin Clark was taking all the abuse. But this year they've added Sophie Cunningham. She gets more flagrant fouls on her than anybody in the league besides Caitlin Clark. And Aaliyah Boston, she's been taking hits as well. But the worst thing is the consistency. So they don't call flagrant fouls, or most of the time Caitlin Clark could be held for an entire game at a time. They don't call fouls. They don't call common fouls. But then when it's the Indiana Fever, guess what? Touch foul here, touch foul here. They call absolutely nothing.
Here's what makes all of this even harder to swallow. Most star athletes in major sports get some level of protection from officials. The biggest names usually aren't treated like crash test dummies out there. But with Clark, it felt like she was getting hammered while the refs stood around pretending they didn't see a thing. And the numbers back it up. This isn't just about one player. According to the Washington Post, there have been 57 head and neck injuries in just the last 2.5 seasons. Guards and small forwards are taking the worst of it. This isn't normal wear and tear. This is a pattern of dangerous play that keeps getting overlooked. Lisa Leslie knows exactly what Clark's up against now. The WNBA legend suffered a similar groin injury back in 2006 and made it clear, these things can linger for months, sometimes even years. And now Clark's facing that same long road, not because of bad luck, but because officials refuse to do their jobs. This wasn't just part of the game. This was the direct result of a league that failed to protect its biggest investment. Every grab that went uncalled, every shove that was ignored, every foul that didn't get a whistle, it all led to this. The WNBA's officiating crisis hasn't just sidelined their brightest star. It's cost them millions and shattered trust. And when you let your biggest draw get taken out like that, you shouldn't be shocked when the fans stop showing up.
Actually had that injury 2006, and listen, I was heavily taped around my thigh, around my glute, just trying to make sure there was enough pressure to hold that groin. And the hard part is that the groin is sort of an area that you can't just touch and go, it hurts right here. You feel it deep. You have to get a lot of deep treatment, whether it's ice and heat and rest. Well, Caitlin Clark, she can't find a lot of rest right now because she's mid-season. But I think that injury is really tough because it lingers. No matter how much medicine you take, you can feel fine. You get back out there, one move, one change of direction, and boom, you're right back feeling that same type of pain. So it's going to be a tough injury that she's going to have to manage.
How long did it take you to recover from?
To be honest, Tracy, I play tennis and I can still feel that injury linger because I don't know that it ever really goes away. You just learn to manage and play with it.
As fans organized boycotts and ticket sales tanked in real time, all eyes turned to Kathy Engelbert to see how she'd handle the biggest crisis of her time as WNBA commissioner. This was her chance to step up, show real leadership, and finally confront the officiating issues that led to Clark's injury. But instead, she gave the kind of polished, corporate-safe response that only made fans more frustrated.
A bunch of players and coaches over the last few days have complained without being fine-worthy about officiating. I just want to see about your thoughts on if officiating is an issue and how it can be improved, because clearly there seems to be problems or disconnect between what players and coaches feel and what officials are actually.
When asked directly about the officiating issues during All-Star Weekend, Engelbert gave the classic executive non-answer. She talked about a meeting with over 40 players and league stakeholders, calling it productive and constructive, and focused on shared goals, while completely dodging the actual issue. But fans weren't tuning in to hear about vague, feel-good meetings. They wanted accountability. They wanted to know why the refs were allowed to let Clark take hit after hit all season without stepping in.
I know as a fan of sports for 60 years now, I know that, no one's ever happy with officiating. All sports deal with it, but we're working hard to make sure we're putting the best product out on the court, and our officiating then follows that.
Her response completely ignored the financial fallout unfolding right in the heart of Indianapolis. While ticket prices were collapsing and local businesses were staring down huge losses, Engelbert was busy talking about team profitability and so-called constructive dialogue. The disconnect was honestly unbelievable. Fans were speaking loud and clear with their wallets, and she acted like it was business as usual. What people actually wanted was simple, a real acknowledgement that the officiating had been awful. They wanted to hear what concrete steps were being taken to protect players like Clark. They wanted anyone, to admit that letting teams go after your biggest star is just bad for the league. But instead, they got more corporate jargon about shared goals and productive conversations. Engelbert's tone-deaf response showed just how out of touch league leadership really is, with both fans and players. While local businesses tallied their losses and supporters organized boycotts, she was focused on keeping the status quo. And by refusing to address the officiating crisis head-on, she didn't calm the backlash. She made it worse.